Hello again. Something which many people have noticed about the two main political parties in Britain is that they have, since the turn of the century, become almost indistinguishable one from the other. Conservative governments enact a socialist agenda, and now a Labour government is committed to privatising the armed forces. What's that you say? Nobody told you that Keir Starmer and his government were introducing privatisation of a key part of our armed forces? Well, Serco seem to run so many other things in this country these days, from the hotels housing illegal immigrants to large chunks of the National Health Service, railways, prisons, and the pension service, that it was perhaps inevitable that sooner or later some fool would hand over responsibility for the defence of the realm to them. Let me explain. For most of British history, the Army and Navy were responsible for recruiting who they thought would make the best soldiers and sailors. They said what type of men they were looking for and were careful to select healthy British people of whose loyalty they were assured. All these men would swear an oath to the Crown, and it was up to the Army and Navy, and of course later the Air Force, to be sure that they were getting the right people. That system, which has worked well for centuries, is now being scrapped. From now on, Serco, a private company which is used by the government for all manner of things and operates 4 private prisons in this country, among other things, will be responsible for selecting recruits for our armed forces and making sure they are the right folk for the job. This will be the task of a new branch of Serco called the Armed Forces Recruitment Service. It doesn't take a genius to see what's wrong with such a scheme. It means that the files on every member of the Army, Navy, and Air Force will in the future be held by a commercial company who will ultimately know more about the composition of Britain's armed forces than the Ministry of Defence. It is, of course, a form of privatisation, although needless to say it's not being advertised as such. Serco are mad keen on what they describe as inclusivity, and some of us think of as favouring foreigners and immigrants. One wonders whether this mindset will affect how they go about reshaping Britain's armed forces as they are describing this process. In the description to this video, I give a link to Serco's exceedingly vague account of what they will be doing. Essentially, it means that the army will no longer have a say in what people become soldiers. That will all be done by Serco, who will indeed be shaping the armed forces once this whole business is up and running. There is a good deal of unease in the Army and Navy about giving this task to a private company, but as I say, since Serco run everything else in Britain these days, I suppose it makes sense to let them decide who can and cannot be in our Army and Navy. My own opinion about this is very clear. The defence of the realm is not something like a cleaning contract for a big hospital which can be put out to tender. The people chosen for the armed forces, in effect, decide what those armed forces are like. And I feel a lot happier knowing that the army is in overall charge of this, rather than an outfit like Serco. This is just one more instance of the way in which Labour and the Conservatives are working to a common plan and joint set of policies which they both enforce. Successive governments of both left and right have invited Serco to get their feet under the table at all levels in our country until it's almost impossible to avoid dealing with them. Ring up the Department for Works and Pensions with an inquiry, and it will be Serco who answer the phone because they have a contract to do that. Travel by rail, and chances are that Serco will be managing at least part of your journey and perhaps all of it. Go to court, and it's Serco who runs security for the court and prisons. Asylum seekers in hotels, that's also Serco. Visit a hospital, and you will find Serco doing the cleaning and maintenance. Now they will be choosing who can join our armed forces. I do not see this as a wise and good development. Far from it.